Roll call, please.
Carroll.
Here.
Manning here. Cosgrove. Severson.
Right.
Williamson.
Here.
Cooey.
Here.
McGuire. Joe Corn.
All right, verification.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting is properly noticed.
Right, looks like we got a 14-point agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Gary? And second, Steve. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes from November 13th. Has everybody had a chance to look at them? Is there any concerns or questions? If not, I will approve them as presented. Public comment. Anybody with public comment today? So, all right, get into reports. Property management.
Okay, just a few things for the maintenance side. We went out and moved some snow at the towers, at 2 towers today. We did Gotham and Yuba. The Yuba tower, I don't know if you're aware of it, but it is being built. They started yesterday, so it's about half built. But we will be doing snow removal on those 2, and Josh is gonna handle a few of the others with bigger equipment, since we can't get it with the truck. So that's being taken care of now. We'll keep up on that. We have a boiler at the science building that wasn't operational, ended up being a broken wire on inside the unit. Somehow it just fell apart. We got that back together today, so now both boilers at the science building are operational. We only had one working before. Didn't have any heat in the gym. Boiler was working because we put a $2,400 or a box that some stored in it here a month or so ago. Boiler's operational, but the air handling unit upstairs was not working. There's a variable frequency drive unit up there. Benny, I talked to Mike this afternoon, I'm sure. But Precision came in this afternoon and we bypassed it. So we do have heat back in the gym again for the school activities that are coming up, because they were complaining about how cold it was. So we do have temporary heat in there until we can figure out whether this frequency drive is going to be replaced, if they want to spend the money on it. It is, that unit there is currently obsolete. The price was $4,000 for just the unit. If you want to go with something else for a 10-horse motor, or 3,700 for a 5-horse, blah, blah, blah. But he thinks he can bypass it with a switch, so we can turn that unit on and off upstairs as needed for the amount of heat in the building. He's gonna do some legwork and try to figure out if he can bypass all that and bypass that whole unit. So, and just run it operational with a switch. He'll get back to us. Yeah, like I said, do a lot of research on it, whether he can do that or not.
So is it just $4,000 for the free drive?
Just for the freak drive. Yeah. And that's not including the rewiring, the labor, and all the other stuff it's probably gonna be, because it's all hooked to the computer system in the science building. So, which is Honeywell, and it's obsolete. We had that issue a year ago, I think, or 2 years ago.
So are we still heating that building yet?
Which one?
Science?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we're
all
currently
the
still
buildings
heating.
are still being heated up there?
So is this the
This
science
time-
building or the gym building?
Well, but the computer system is all set up in the science building and it feeds. I know, it's a mess.
It's a good place for it.
And there's no updates, they can't get any updates because that system is 20-some years old from Honeywell, and they can't get the updates for that computer system. So,
So the thought is to try to just get that on its own, so that it'll
Yes.
just sit there.
yes. And that's what he's gonna, that, he wants to bypass that freak drive and go to a switch so we can get off that other system.
Understood.
So, that's all I have for today, sir.
Any good news?
So that's,
They quit snowing.
and it's snow plowing now with those tower size, what's the additional cost of anticipate?
For me, it's just the two entrances to those 2 towers, that's it. Maybe couple hours.
It was always really expensive to plow anywhere else in the county on our property, so I just didn't know if it was gonna increase our budget, so.
All right, it's just gonna be fuel. It's the fuel down there. So,
For those sites, we're probably.
and the
gonna-
two sites that I have.
Right, so if there are two sites that we're gonna have to possibly buy some attachments to some equipment so that we can do Westport and Viola, just based on how those roads are. So that's something Josh and I are working on. So that's gonna be an additional cost.
We'll absorb two other sites in the normal plow routes of patrolmen and, probably should be in the radio tower updates with what we've been kind of working on, but Viola and Westport will require specialty equipment to make up those roads. I don't know what, supervisors have been able to visit those sites. Westport is extremely, kind of a ghost path, even though we did build a road, put gravel breaker, run the whole 9 yards down. In the winter months, it's extremely challenging, so that will take a specialty piece of equipment. As of right now, to punch those roads open, we are assembling one of our graders to go out there with chains to try to do the best we can to get those two roads punched open. As for the rest, we're working with Randy and then doing it with, integrating it into the plow routes. Determining cost for those is gonna be a little difficult, because as Trish and I talked about, when we figure out our budget for plowing snow for the year, we usually look at a 10-year average of what we're spending, depending on winter snowstorms. Coming up with a exact cost, how much extra it's going to be, is kind of a hard one to figure out, because you don't know what kind of winter you're gonna have. One winter, you may only send them out a couple times to go clear. Another one, you could be out there every other day trying to punch those roads open. So until we get a couple years into this to establish kind of a baseline, we honestly will not know how much it's gonna cost to maintain those roads and what kind of material we're gonna have to throw out those roads to begin with. And then, of course, the springtime repair, when you get done with the winter, how bad those roads are tore up, or if they're muddy or whatever have you.
With those patrolmen that are gonna have those duties on to doing those sites, who's gonna receive the bill for that?
Right now, we're gonna tack it on with a radio tower. We'll send those bills over to the courthouse. But what we'll do is we'll have the patrolmen do their standard routes first. And when we send them back out after a snowstorm's all done and we're doing the touch-up, winging back, sanding the roads, touching things up, then we'll have them go punch those sites open. Then we'll know like how many hours it's gonna take them to do each site. For our trucks on those two sites, I mean, you're probably talking an hour a piece, most likely, maybe even less than that.
That's what I'm making aware, is that there's gonna be additional costs somewhere now that we're doing this stuff, so.
And we,
Those patrolmen, county highways always send out a bill for doing non-highway related stuff, and that's usually at an added cost compared to what it would be for private, so just saying.
We did create a radio tower fund for next year and there are maintenance costs in there, so that'll be something that'll be built into there moving forward in the future when we have a better idea of how much it's going to be.
Understood.
Hey, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I have a question on the air handler. So what direction has Precision been given to do what?
He's just gonna do research on that air handler right now to figure out our options, our best options to keep it running before we sell it before it goes over to the school. It's, like I said, it's still gonna be operational, but just, it's on a bypass right now. So it's heating. But in order for it to start and stop like it's supposed to with that freak drive, we just don't have that right now. So, and he's looking for options without having to spend another $6,000 right away.
Okay.
So,
All right. Any other questions? Josh, go ahead.
all right, we got quite a bit to go over, especially with the recommendations from the last meeting, so, stop me at any time to ask questions. So over the last month, which hasn't been quite a full month, everybody's seen the weather, so we've been in, doing winter readiness and response to the winter activities. There will be no financial update as of this month, because we're a week early, so last month bills aren't settled out yet. I'd like to start into the financial questions, CIP, so on and so forth, by starting with some of the last month questions that we saw right near the end of it. There was a couple charges on the bills that were in question about like rental of equipment, leases of equipment, which I'll get into more depth later, but just to answer those specific questions. The John Fabic tractor one, item 549, which was identified at 4,200. That was a breakdown that we had during seal coating. Our roller went down, so we had to get a rental piece of equipment in place for that. So that was a seal coating project cost. Mid-States Equipment and Supply for rental equipment. That is the, machine used for doing, not crack filling, it's a crack filling type unit. County does not own one of those. It doesn't pay to own one of those. So when we have contracts come from the state, we have to go rent that. That's 100% reimbursed by the state of Wisconsin. Pine River Leasing for that rental equipment, that was a small mini excavator that was used on the state. Again, that's a piece of equipment that doesn't pay to own it. So we rent them as we need them. So it's a small cost. And then Randy Olson Trucking, the $825, that's because his loader was at the stockpile we were pulling out of. Instead of us sending our loaders to that site, expending that, we just asked Randy if we could use his loader for the few loads we had, so that was only $825. So hopefully that clarifies, like, we're not just out going after many pieces of equipment. These are all operational expenses that we generally get 100% reimbursement for, or it's a breakdown, or it's just a convenience of saving money versus taking equipment to those. So from there, we'll go into the 2026 budget, which was brought up at last meeting. I want to review. So a couple meetings ago in September, the budget was put into the packet. Derek, would you be willing to put that on the big screen?
Yeah.
So I've added the budget again, which has all the documents. We're basically going to zoom in on, Derek, I think it's going to be page 42 you're looking at. Just scroll down. I'll tell you when you get there. Keep going. Right there. Can you zoom in on that? So this was the adopted budget for 2026 for highway. Primarily what you want to pay attention to is the top portion, the top Excel spreadsheet. That is the mandated services that we need to provide, and it's all categorized under what kind of activity you're going to do. Brush and spray, mowing, county construction, county maintenance, signs and trash, so on and so forth. So if you look where it's in blue, it says 2026 budget. That's the dollar figure we're going to spend on each one of those accounts for the mandated services that we have to provide. So that's a large part of our working budget. Now you'll see the county road O and double O at the next Excel spreadsheet down for the 7 million. Yes, the construction is still completed on it, but as the committee is aware of, we carry additional charges long after the project is all said and done. Now there is a big change on that project. About 3/4 of the way through, we were able to file for a change order and request more additional funds from the state of Wisconsin and the federal government, which we were successful. Originally, the county's cost share on the construction portion was going to be 1.5 million. We were able to reduce the county's portion to 649,465.13. And out of that, we've currently paid 275,793. So we're still anticipating having to spend about $373,000 for the fiscal year of 2026. And that is another reason why we're not adding any additional road projects on for next year, because everybody knows we can't afford to do any additional road projects. So we'll have to pay that one off. And then where we need to really work together on as a committee is the following years of what road projects we're going to do to adjust our CIP accordingly, because that's about the only way we can continue to operate for that. Let's see here. I wanted to point out, I think it was brought up at a county board meeting, where's the wheel tax show up? There's a line up at the top that says county seal coating. That is your wheel tax money. Each year, we anticipated just over 300,000. To have a balanced budget, we had to absorb some of that wheel tax to help cover the cost of the County Road O project, but it is still identified as 216,000 of the wheel tax is still available for seal coating, or should we choose to rotate it to a different project. So that's where you can always find the wheel tax. Like if taxpayers ask a question, look at these documents, they're turned in, they're public. That's where you're going to find that wheel tax money identified. CIP, moving into that portion. CIP, the county borrows $500,000 for highway department every year. You'll see those in the sheets that we filled out in the past, because that's what the county could afford to give highway. And that 500,000 is not used for road projects, but it's a purchase of new plow trucks. And that's really all we've used that money for, is to purchase new plow trucks, because a plow truck, yes, Steve.
I'm trying to see where the 500,000 shows up in the spreadsheet.
Okay, we'll go back to the spreadsheet. Derek, would you pull that document back up? All right, go up a little bit. No, you can go up. And then you can zoom in on that document and get more of a clearer picture there. So right there, go below the total expenditures and you'll find the line that says operational revenue, capital improvement program. And you can see in 2024, there's your 500,000, there's your actual and estimated, and then you'll see it's a pretty good spike there to, what is it, 1.6, can't see this far. But anyways, there's additional funding because of the money that we're anticipating coming back for the grant to pay for the bridge that we did. So we had to account for that funding. So it's all part of like the capital improvement program. That's where you'll find that money identified.
And that's in your 2026 budget?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So anyways, back to the 500,000 is what the county borrows for the CIP, from the CIP to give highway to be able to purchase new plow trucks. The new plow truck is approaching over $400,000. So that leaves us just a little bit of change if we're gonna buy any new equipment, which generally would pay for a pickup truck or two for that rotation. And the CIP is, I think, what we'll probably end up having to work with, or you guys as a county board, to fund road projects. Let's see, moving on. So then the question was asked, like, what is our purchases for next year? So obviously, we're gonna do one plow truck for 2026. And then we're gonna look at doing 2 superintendent trucks. And what we'll do is the 2 superintendent trucks, we'll buy 2 newly used, because I will not buy a new piece of new truck because of the overall cost. We always go with a slightly used one to save quite a bit of money. Those 2 superintendent vehicles will move down to the fleet on the rotation, as we've discussed in the past. And then the 2 of the oldest trucks from the fleet will be sold or traded in, depending on what we deem as a value, if we're not gonna get any money for them, on trade. And then, other than that, the only other major purchase we'll look at is upfitting for the radio tower roads, which we're gonna keep that cost pretty low, just because I think we can take an existing piece of equipment and add some attachments to make it work. And then, as I've stated in the past, we're always looking for additional mowing tractors. We have about 8 or 9 mowing tractors, and that's, got to cover 300 miles worth of county road and another 100 some miles of state road. That's why it takes us a while to get from one area of the county to the other mowing. Other than that, that's all the major purchases for equipment I have planned for 2026. So then the question comes in about what kind of equipment we have on inventory, what are we using, what are we not using. So again, we've talked about this most recently in the last couple months, but we looked at what kind of equipment we had on inventory, how many hours we were charging to them, and we want to get into the way of, okay, let's not buy this equipment if we're not going to utilize it. Let's look at more rentals. So that's what we did. So what would our big piece of our inventory, which you've seen this spreadsheet in the past, it's a packet, basically. This lists all of our equipment. Primarily what is on here is your plow trucks, your wings, your sanders, the attachments, and then the other equipment. So the big things that are always brought into questions like dozers. Why do we have so many dozers? Well, we went from having 3 dozers, now we're down to 1. We just sold the D8 at auction. We have 1 cab dozer right now. We usually put quite a bit of hours on that thing. It's pretty new yet, so we're gonna hold on to that 1 dozer for a little while. If we need additional, we'll rent or we'll hire that and work out. We had 3 graders, we're down to 2. We traded 1 in towards a repair. Or I'm sorry, that one wasn't a repair, that was a trade-in towards a used tractor that we got last year that came on with the loader. I believe you guys remember that one. We had 3 loaders, we're down to 1. We had 2, 1 burned up, that was an insurance claim. We went out and got a rental, so we didn't have to buy one. We weren't using it, so we turned that rental back in. We were able to get $10,000 of that back. So we just have 1 loader in our fleet, and that's a rental. We do not own it, and it's only $41,000 a year. And then the plow trucks, we generally try to rotate those out. This year we sold 3 plow trucks, 1 triaxle, 2 tandems. If you follow the Wisconsin surplus auction, you'll see everything that we were able to part ways with this year. The specialty equipment that we do have, which we showed as we ran our reports with how many hours of money we're making off of them, we have 2 wheel excavators, 1 tracked excavator, and we use those year round. In summertime, we're doing ditching projects, excavating projects. Then winter months, we're putting the mulching heads on them and we're using them for brush clearing. And then we have 2 skid loaders, which we utilize those all day in and day out. And then we have some specialty equipment for like doing seal coating projects, basically some rollers. We have our paver because we can do paving cheaper than hiring that out. Other than that, we really don't have anything left for specialty equipment or big things. The leases versus a rental. we went into leases because some of, like a wheeled excavator is a prime example. To rent a wheeled excavator, the cost for that is astronomical per year versus buying one and doing a lease program, splitting that cost up over a couple of years. And at the end of the lease, we can either turn it back in and start a new lease, or we can turn around and keep it, or we can turn around and sell it depending on how much we're using it. So that's why we do either rentals or leases. And all those equipment costs are back on this spreadsheet, the one that we just pointed out where the capital improvement is, in our equipment maintenance budget, which is $1 million. That accounts for the $500,000 of purchases, plus all the rentals that we have on existing, or leases on existing equipment, which currently right now we have a lease on the wheeled excavator. We're finishing one up on the skid loader. I think we just finished that. We finished a tractor, and then I think I said wheeled excavator. But I think that's about it for that we encompass. But that also takes care of your fuel costs, your maintenance, so on and so forth. And then CIP moving that, so then road work for future years. I'm just telling you guys this to start planning. So when we start looking at a budget for 2027 of what we can tackle, this sheet you won't find in your packet, but I put it together because I just finalized it yesterday as technically like a 5-year plan. And then every road that's on here currently has state, federal, or whole chunk funding attached to it, so there's a cost share for that, so we just need to come up with our match. So we'll work together to prioritize those roads with what we'll do in 2027, one road, break up the cost, whatever it may be. And then the other thing I added additionally in your packet will be the road ratings. This is 2024's current ratings that has all of our roads listed, and we're currently updating to 2025 because the Whistler's all done. That has to be done by the 15th, but those copies aren't up to date yet. So this is the current standard. So I hope I've been able to answer all the questions from last meeting, maybe give some clarification, understanding with what we have for equipment. So following the guidelines, we've eliminated a whole pile of equipment off of our inventory, and we don't plan on adding them back to inventory anytime soon. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think the biggest question I had was the lease versus the rental. And if it makes more sense to lease it, I'm perfectly fine with that. But we went from purchasing everything to the leasing or rental. And this was 4 or 5 years ago we talked council. So, and the other thing is we talk about bulldozers, but that's exactly what I was hoping for, is we were at one instead of having 3 of them sitting there and 2 of them sitting 11 months out of the year. And then when you go to use them, then you take them in the shop, and then you got to work on it for a week, and then you can go use them. So this is exactly what I was hoping we were doing, Josh. The other thing is it's evident that we're going to have to look at the borrowing to fill in the gap. I mean, we're very much, it'd be foolish not to be aware of that, right? Because the cost, at least we're getting the trucks now that we ordered, and they're not going to get cheaper year over year, and we just have to plan for that. But it's good to be on the front end of this so that we can start going, so we know what to do before the budget comes and says, okay, well, now we can't do anything. That's not the way we want to look at that. So thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, could I add one additional thing about the sand pit that was brought up? So the material that Mizey has, I believe, might be coming to a quick close. And we're looking like we're going to have to go back into that sand pit and try again. I think what we're going to do, because for us to do it, we're going to hire it out anyways. We don't want to own all that equipment. Look at bringing in an outside contractor, and we're going to move farther into that pit, which would be due east of where we're currently right now, to where we can confirm the bore samples we're actually taking. And we're going to have them come in and screen probably a couple years worth of sand in there and see if we can make it work that way. If we can't, then we really need, then you got 20 acres at your disposal as far as I'm concerned. So.
Well, then you'll rebore sample that anyways before you start scraping.
We'll most likely have to, because there's right through the middle of that sand pit, there's actually an underground power line that runs through there. We have to have it marked, and it's like right in the heart of everything. We have to work around it most of the time. So we're going to try. We're just going to try.
Well, hopefully we get lucky and find big vein sands.
Josh, I had a question on the whole chunk money. I always wondered how that works I mean, we get it quite often. Do you apply for that every year? I was wondering how many counties, could any state or any county in the state apply for that?
So in order to be eligible for whole chunk funding, you have to have roads identified and acknowledged with whole chunk that serve a purpose with whole chunk, identify something that they have interest in. And then you actually agree upon a road list. So there's only certain roads in the county the whole chunk can provide funding for. Our list is actually shrunk in half because there's new people in power, different understandings. So we went from having like almost a dozen roads on their inventory and we're down to like 6. So when you go after whole chunk funding, it's usually once a year call for projects. This year it was in Green Bay. I went up there, I spent a couple days with whole chunk. And that's how you put a proposal forward for a road that is currently on their inventory and ask them for whatever they can do. Here's the thing though, there is a funding identified from whole chunk, but you don't count on it until it happens. We were supposed to have whole chunk funding on the County Road O project. Parameters changed. Now there's no whole chunk funding on that. So you really don't count on that until you get the documentation from a whole chunk and take it to county board and resolution form.
Is there still a limit of like 50,000 on that yet?
No, the limits are pretty much the size of the project, how much they're willing to put towards it, their interest. We're averaging, right now, last one that they put us on list for was 800,000 for County Road X. And I think we have 750,000 for County Road E, which is that last strip that we left off of from Basswood to 171. Of course, that road's not terrible. So we're gonna do that one's like an inch overlay. We're gonna do the rut filling and then do an inch overlay on that. So.
Thank you.
Perfect. And go ahead, Steve.
On the $500,000 in the CIP, you've got that same number just penciled in 2027. But aside from inflation and those things, is that the general range of where you think we need?
For a truck, for one truck purchase, yes.
Okay.
That gives you enough room if there was like another COVID event and there was big surcharges that came, it would have enough cushion because a plow truck is gonna be just shy of 400,000. That gives you enough wiggle room to maybe buy your pickup trucks for the following year and purchase your plow truck in its entirety.
How many plow trucks are on the fleet?
We have 19 active plow trucks in the fleet with about 4 in reserve.
Much money different between a twin screw and a triaxle? Is there a lot of money difference there?
Tandem and a tri, there's about a $20,000 jump.
The state requires a certain size, right?
The state doesn't require a certain size. It's basically what works for your county. We like tandems, and the reason, it's a financial thing. It's a payment thing. A tandem brings you more money per hour for its use than a triaxle is going to, because a tandem is spending more time on the road than the triaxle is theoretically hauling. So the bigger truck you go with, the less the hourly rate is going to be. A tandem is kind of like that happy place in between because you can cover 30 miles worth of road with one load of sand if you're just doing one round and done. Triaxle gives you a little bit extra horse. Single axles have been kind of phased out because their capacity's not there. They're kind of a small truck. They don't have enough oomph to them in a heavier snow. So we're transitioning out of our single axles and primarily going to tandems with tries because tries we use for hauling during blacktop.
All right, anything else for Josh? Okay, radio tower project.
So they started stacking the Yuba Tower this week, so that should be done by the end of the week. GenCom is continuing to finish their work, and the goal is still to be able to cut over January 1. So we'll see.
Getting close to January 1.
And the weather's not helping.
Well, there's not.
Didn't work today.
No.
I just want to mention something. So I was disheartened to learn the other day that with our tower project, switching over from analog to this digital, or whatever it is, that the pagers that everybody carries like this, that they're only gonna receive paging. They can't listen to the call after it's been paged to know what's going on, like a deputy rides on the scene and says, hey, I see the structure's on fire, 2-story, whatever. They won't be able to hear that at all because the pagers are not compatible for that.
So you need to buy a new pager.
It won't work that way. The pagers are only analog and the voice is transmitted on digital and it just doesn't work that way. But that was part of the equipment requests that departments were supposed to make, to have radios so that they could do that for their staff.
Guess it keeps on giving, is what it is. Until you get to a certain point, then everybody will have what they need. But I did get a call from one of my supervisors on the Orion, and they're working on something for the rural fire department, Richland Center, to get radios or something. That's good. So if anybody else needs radios, Viola or anybody, let me know so I can tell them.
So radios are totally different than this thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, but they need radios too, to be compatible, so. All right, anything else on that? It's getting closer to the end. All right, number 8, discussion possible action on approval of air conditioning system bids. So we go over the bids today.
He has bids.
He has the bids. You have the bids?
For the air conditioning, I think they're in the packet.
Okay,
Yep.
so here's Precision Controls is up there. If we could have a layman's explanation of this bid so that we can, where the problem was is we didn't understand the difference between the two. That's why we wanted everybody here to explain.
This is the so I'm Benny Green with Precision Controls. We did the multi-stack unit. One of the things when we this project got brought to our attention is trying to assess needs of what you guys were looking for. One of the things that was brought up consistently was redundancy. And also making sure that the unit would fit the location. And wanted to make sure that we get a unit that would fit with what you guys were looking to do. I brought in Paul from WHP. He is on, he's joining through WebEx.
Getting back.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Paul.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Kruko with WHV. I worked with Benny from Precision here to put together a package here for replacing the chiller at the courthouse. And as Benny was saying, part of the selection process that was done was based on the importance of having a cooling system that didn't have a single point of failure. Just based on the fact that we had the understanding that if inmates had to be moved because temperatures couldn't be maintained, it got quite expensive for the county, or could get quite expensive. So we took that all into consideration and how we came up with selected a package here for replacing what you currently have. And what is currently there now, we kind of went over this when I was down for one of your meetings here a couple months ago. Ultimately, you've got some condensing units that sit outside. If I remember correctly, I think there was 10 of them. And then there's 5 heat exchangers inside the boiler room. And that's where the heat exchange takes place and the chilled water is made and sent out to the equipment around the building. So what we're proposing here is a product made by Multi-Stack, which Multi-Stack is a company that is based out of Sparta, Wisconsin. Multi-Stack was the first to introduce the modular chiller and get their chiller approved back in around the 90s, 2000s. So they've had it around for around 30 years roughly. So anyway, what a modular chiller is it gives the flexibility to have your indoor compressor portion of a chiller inside the building and get it inside a building through doorways and that kind of thing, where you have tight quarters or confined, limited space, I should say, to work with. So what we're proposing here is we would have, you currently have 50 tons of cooling. We're proposing two 30-ton multi-stack modules that will give you a total of 60 tons cooling. So you'll have a little bit more cooling capacity than what you currently have. There would be 4 remote air-cooled condensers that sit outside in the general area of where your current condensing units sit. And how this system will function is we ultimately have 4 15-ton circuits, and we'd have to have a complete loss of power in the building for there to not be some cooling available with this system. And I say that because we have multi-stack offers a control package that if you lose the master controller, it will fall back to the internal controllers for each module. And since there's a 15-ton circuit within each 30-ton module and a separate condenser for each 15-ton circuit. So that's why we have the 4 condensers outside. So that's why I say you'd have to have a complete power failure in order to not have some cooling available. And these refrigerant circuits are independent. So if circuit 1 sprung a leak, you still have circuit 3, 4, or 2, 3, and 4, and so on. So you don't have true 60 tons of redundancy, but you have cooling available. You're not dead in the water if you lose a circuit or lose a module. And you don't necessarily have a full 50 tons of cooling, all day long in the summer anyway. There's, you're probably functioning on half of that capacity most days or less, depending on the load. Some days maybe more. But anyway, so as part of this whole package, there's no glycol involved. There's no additional pumps that we're adding. We're reusing the system pumps that are already in the building, and you have redundancy on the pump side currently with your chill water pumps. So we are tying into your chilled water system down it. So the modules would sit in the basement in the boiler room, and we would tie into the chilled water piping that's there. And we would also have an additional, what's proposed in here, additional controls to assist with energy consumption. So we're not just turning these chillers on and they're just running wide out and maintaining a set point. We'll be maintaining a chill water set point, but we'll also be looking at demand on the system so that if we don't have a heavy load in the building or a lot of call for chill water, we can scale things back and cut down the amount of energy being used. So that's all part of what's proposed in here. And that's at the bottom, the bulleted, the standalone automated logic DDC. That's what that portion of that will assist with. So, so there's no glycol that we're adding with this system because the chiller sits inside. The condensers are remote, so we're just piping the refrigerant with copper piping from indoor to outdoor. So there's no need for glycol or additional pumps. And as a result of that, that gets us roughly a 20 to 30% reduction in the energy usage with this type of system. And I say that because with glycol, there's some loss. We got extra usage if we had additional pumps that were being used. And then just the loss that there is if there was a heat exchanger, a water to water. We don't have any water to water heat exchanger in this system. It's just the water to refrigerant, which is in whether it's a packaged air cooled chiller or a multi-stack module, you still have your water to refrigerant. exchange. So for those reasons, that makes the system more energy efficient to operate, which end of the day saves the county some money in just energy usage when you're making chill water. A little further down, I put in an ad as an option. If you wanted to have this to where you could monitor the system from a front end or remotely, if you wanted to have it so it could send out an alarm to somebody if the chill water failed, like say on a holiday or a weekend, something happened and something, whatever it was. I mean, in this case, hopefully we're not going to have a failure just because of how this system functions and what we selected here. But if there was a loss of power for some reason, I mean, we could, of course, you'd know that through other means, I'm sure, but this would give you the capability to remotely monitor or do some things with the chill water system. It's not necessary. I put it in there as an ad if it was of any interest. So, and that is also something that can be utilized for other parts of the building, HVAC equipment too. It's not, wouldn't necessarily have to be, it's not just for the chiller usage. It can be used for, if there was further things down the road that were put on the system, it would work with that as well. So again, it's not necessary with this project. I put it in there as an option if it was of interest to anyone.
All right. Thank you for that. Any questions?
In the quote, the chiller model number, I'm trying to see where that lines up with these catalog cuts we've got. The numbers don't match up. I just wonder if you could explain how that chiller model number works.
Which page are you looking at? What Benny handed out to you?
I'm looking at that, and also the precision controls quote from Precision Controls, where they mentioned the chiller model number.
Yeah, so the model that's selected is on the module side of it. There's two of the MSA 030s.
Right, and I'm just trying to look at just looking in the catalog cuts here to say which parts of this catalog are the ones that are in that MSA 30.
I think
So
that
if you
on
go-
page 6 model. Is it on page 6? Dave? Page 6, over in the corner. See that? Yeah.
So where we went,
MS, the MS 3010A.
yeah, all the way to the right.
Yeah, so they abbreviate. They have multiple selections within that. Ultimately, it's the MS 030 that we're working with, but there's different different voltage, different there's lots of different options that can be selected within that MS model. So that's why you're probably seeing, you'll see there's blanks even when you read across some of the model numbers. Well, on page 3, you can see that they break down your model number, and depending on what you're selecting or what the needs are with that particular module for the project application, there's different selections that can be selected. So, but ultimately it's the MS 030, which is what we have proposed here. That is the model of the multi-stack module that we're working with here, or that's been selected.
I just wonder what KNAB stood for.
Well, one of the things I can tell you is multi-stack hasn't updated their one of the things that aren't in here is, so what's proposed here is the new A2L refrigerant, which everything is, for 2026, there's nothing going out that's going to have R410A in it. So they have not updated there because there's still R410A stuff going out the door here and that's coming to a head here real quick, but some of that R410A isn't available anymore, and this is still a brochure that they haven't updated yet on their website that still has it doesn't have the A2L refrigerant nomenclature in there. So that's why some of that is going to look a little bit different.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Anyone else? All right. Well, let's look at the other bid so we can have some explanation on that one.
Sure. So we took a little different approach to the project. Basically, our proposal is 2 packaged 30-ton outdoor carrier chillers. And we would have a wet loop from those chillers to a plate exchanger mounted in the basement. Both chillers would have a pump on them. Both chillers have redundancy insofar as the compressors, which 2 in each. So if a compressor would happen to lock out, you still have a compressor on each one. 2 chillers gives us redundancy. I'm not too concerned about having a glycol loop. We do it all the time. Flowing 2, a stainless steel plate exchanger inside a plate and frame actually. And then your load would run through the other side of that plate and frame exchanger. I'm a little concerned about, with the new refrigerant, have that indoors because propane based, you're supposed to have a mitigation system. They have a leak. With the 2 package outdoor chillers, we have no refrigerant in the building. Running glycol in and out. I do have a couple of drawings of the basic concept here. Somebody wants to look them. I do have a couple of cut sheets on the carrier chillers. The efficiencies on the chillers go all the way from 10.7 at part load up to 21. So they're staged. Another concern, side issue to this that I think you might want to address, we're talking about your load pumps in the building aren't redundant. And in this project, you're not replacing load pumps. And I looked at them while I was here and it's like, boy, they're pretty old pumps. You could have all the nice chiller setup you want outdoor, but if your load pump goes down, that air handler is done. So you really need to consider that. And we didn't put any kind of proposal together on those load pumps, but it is a consideration. You're updating the chiller. However, whether it's our system, somebody else's system, we, by the way, also sell multi-stack equipment. I would not recommend ourselves putting a split system in where we're piping the refrigerant from the indoor condenser to the condensers or the indoor compressors units to the condensers outside. That's all field refrigerant piping. When you buy a package chiller, that's all built factory and done. I also gave you an option on here to put dual pumps on the chillers if you want to have redundancy in the pump side of the chillers as well. So we have 2 30-ton chillers. We're going from current 50 tons that you have up to 60 tons total, staged 15, 15, 15, like that. Basically just giving an on-go signal to the chillers. They manage themselves and do what they need to do. I don't know if the multi-stack chiller that's specified meets or exceeds the threshold for where you have to have R432 mitigation in the building, but you want to be careful about that. Over a certain amount of pounds of refrigerant in the building requires you to have that mitigation system with the new refrigerants. Beyond that, our requirements from you as owner, the power wiring, which we have spelled out in our proposal, and the concrete pad out there will have to be slightly wider than what's there now. And when I talked, initially we talked about that. Going through a couple of notes here. The biggest thing I see is the refrigerant side of it. When I looked at the project, my goal was to get the refrigerant out of the building. And this does that. It's a stainless plate frame heat exchanger inside with a glycol loop running out to 2 chillers. Each chiller has their own pump. They talk to each other through communication. Really pretty straightforward system. And when I went out for quotes for these chillers, just to give you an idea, we use a lot of carrier chillers, not exclusively, but a lot of them. But their pricing, carrier's pricing to us was 30% less than the next vendor that I went to, which was Daikin. So, you know, yes, there can be wide differences in chiller pricing. Two 30-ton chillers are not big chillers. We priced out 150 ton today. So this is a pretty straightforward setup. I included insulating for the piping and jacketing and insulating for the piping outside. Two chillers would sit with the noses or the pump ends looking at each other, so the piping would come directly in. That's these sheets. I just got two of these, but I can give you the concept. And this was just a sketch I did before it came to the pipe. So
Any questions?
Will you explain your concern with the two pumps? It sounds like after this is replaced, part of the remaining system might have a failure where we still wouldn't have redundancy.
yeah, and that was one concern I had. It's like I say, we put new chillers in and everything's fine, but you still have three load pumps that pump to the air handlers. If one of those go down, you are essentially without cooling to that air handler. I didn't see that they were redundant, but they're pretty old pumps. One thought would be to have, and they're slightly different frames. They're all 2 horsepower, but they're slightly different frames. One thought would be at bare minimum to have a spare pump on hand. So if the pump quits, you change it out. We really have to look at that a little bit, how the body and frame looks compared to existing to see if it's, oh, well, you just slide it in, or well, we got to do slight pipe modification to fit it. 2 horsepower pumps aren't large, but there's 3 of them and a very important part of your system. Chiller can run all day, but if the pump dies, you're done. So to me, that is a concern that I had about the project. As a sort of side note, to sort of eliminate some of the thing where you guys get different information from different contractors and so on, would be to bring an engineer up front. Let him choose the system, design it, put it out for bids, then you're gonna get apples to apples every time. By doing this, you're, you know, coming with the credibility of the company, and that's all fine and well, but everybody looks at a project different. I took a pretty minimal approach to this, because you might remember I did the boiler project and we were over budget and we lost it. So to eliminate that, you bring in an engineer who says, no, this is what we're doing. Everybody bids that. And I do have a concern, and I don't know what the quantity of R42, 432 refrigerant in the building is, but you better make sure that it doesn't exceed the threshold, because then you'll be into a mitigation system. Any other questions?
Well, that's it.
A rough number for what it would take to get a redundant pump in there, a new pump?
Well, as a, for instance, 2 horsepower, B&G pumps have gotten crazy expensive like everybody else, but I'm gonna estimate a 2 horsepower pump, they're probably in the neighborhood of 2,500 to 3,500 a piece. The pumps are all 2 horse, but they're slightly different, maybe because of the age when they were purchased or whatever. Certainly would be worth exploring that, so that you either replace them now and we all do pumps, and if they're the same body, you take the old pumps and rebuild them maybe, that sort of thing, or you put them in and have backup pump. They're all 3 the same, and we have a 4th one that's our backup. So that if any one of these individual zones goes down, you have the ability to get it up and running within a reasonable amount of time. On my proposal, I gave you 2 alternates. One was for dual pumps on the chillers. Second alternate was for glycol feeders, a little vessel inside with a small pump that pumps glycol in if it ever needs it. Typically, once the system's charged and up and running, it's usually pretty stable. You don't really need to add glycol or anything, but let's say that, whatever, some ice fell on the building outside and pipe leaked or whatever, and we had to put some glycol in and fix the leak, you know, that kind of thing. We bid this basically also with all weld pipe from chillers to our manifold and into the plate exchanger. Your 4-inch existing loop would pipe right into the other side of this plate frame heat exchanger. It's included in the bid as well, along with the insulating and so on, the way the proposal spells it out.
Any more questions? Let's see.
Would you normally, or would you be willing to take on the electrical and get a sub to work for you to do that?
Oh, yeah, I got several different electricians. You may have a local electrical contractor that does all your work that you would, for us coordinating with him. And we can either take him in on a contract to us, to you, or we can just coordinate that effort with an electrician that you would choose. But probably the county has somebody they use most of the time. Would probably be the one that won't do it. We'll require 2 power supplies outside, but even the multi-stack, you'll require power running to the condensers outside and power to the chiller inside and so on. The carrier chiller, I believe it says on there, they do have a single point power connection on the chiller. So basically the electrician, once he gets outdoors, he sets a J-box and whip up to it. The chiller itself has disconnect on. And the reason I mention that eliminates some electrical cost from the electrician. He's got to put in whatever, 50 amp 3-phase disconnect or 60 amp that's built into the machine. Like I said, we do use a lot of carrier chillers, but not exclusive. We use Train, we use multi-stack, Daikin. A lot of times it's based on what the engineer specifies to us to install. One of your schools here in town, I think we just put a Daikin.
All right, any more questions? So, we're ready to make a decision, I hope, after this explanation.
I guess I'd like to ask Randy, does either one of these systems something to be easier, or you're more?
I'm not familiar enough with them to know, to make a decision on that.
You're the man that's got to work out.
Yeah.
So not knowing, the concern of the refrigerant is one of mine. Being in the building versus outside the building.
And again, I don't know the exact quantity of the multi-stack chiller, but I know for sure the refrigerant's in the building because you're piping it to the condensers outside. And it tells me you, with that many circuits, you may be beyond the threshold. I don't want you to get the surprise afterward, like, whatever. Inspector comes in and says, okay, where's your mitigation? That is a sensor and an exhaust fan, and where do we get the air in and that kind of thing. There is something to it, and we've been made keenly aware of that by the manufacturer.
As far as the glycol, to me, that's pretty standard stuff. Plate heat exchanger, the plate, basically all there is a plate in the building. At the end of the day.
This happens to be a plate and frame exchanger, not a braze plate, which is cheaper. We went to the full plate and frame.
Which I would expect that. Not that I know, I don't know a lot about that, but I know, but working up with the stuff where I work, I guess, where are we at? Where are we at, guys? We got somebody who wants to make a motion, otherwise I would make a motion to go with thermodynamics. Quote.
Discussion.
Yes, discussion.
I think we should buy some pumps for the money that I don't know if it's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I think we need to figure out what we're gonna do here first.
Yeah.
And then the next part of the phase is going through and fixing that, but we got a motion and Gary second. All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carried. So the bid will be awarded to Thermodynamics. I want to thank both of you. I do agree with the statement that was made that if we're going to do this stuff, we need to start engineering it so that everybody's got a fair chance of what they're doing, because the main reason why we didn't do anything the last time is because we didn't even understand what we were looking at. And thanks for coming in and explaining and going through this again. But I think for us to going forward in any of these projects, I know it adds cost, but then it's the right way to do it, you know, or maybe not the right way, but at least it gives everybody the same opportunity. Right?
Overall, I think it provides a level of protection for the county. That's my main reason for recommending it.
I appreciate that, so.
And whatever that engineer proposes, companies can do apples to apples.
Apples to apples, they can give you an alternate at time of bid. Let's say both companies are bidding apples and X company wants to give, hey, I'm gonna give you oranges too. But you see his apples bid right on the proposal.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well, thank
time.
you. Okay, next is the review and approval of bids for the ambulance service building.
So you have, the bids, if you remember back, we had bids from Finer Construction initially. We're the only ones that responded to the RFP. They came back, asked me to put it out there with the gable roof request, put it out there. I had Great Lakes Roofing respond. Both companies are here today and they will talk to you. As I have said from day one, I'm not a roofer. I can fix humans. My husband is a contractor. That's not me. I don't know anything about it. So I brought in professionals to speak to you about their quotes and why they're quoting the solutions that they are.
All right.
So if I have no preference,
I guess we got Great Lakes up now, so I guess.
and Finer's here as well, so.
Got Great Lakes up there, and just want them to start out with, I guess.
Yep, started there.
Hmm?
All right.
All right, thanks, guys. This is we're Great Lakes Roofing. My name is Matt Kesnick, and this is my operations manager, Pete. And thank you for your consideration. And it looks like you have all my documents there already, so we'll just kind of talk about the project, a little bit about who we are, and then open up for questions if you guys have any. So what we determined for the best scope of work for this job was going to be replacing all, so you have 3 different sections. I think I saw the overhead earlier, but there's 3 different sections, and we're going to be doing what we call a layover because I did some cores when I was out there, and I determined that the insulation underneath the membrane was not completely saturated. I think there are some small spots where you're having leaks where there is a little bit of moisture. In those situations, we just cut out the wet pieces and replace with new dry insulation. And then we put our new membrane over the top of the old membrane. And we are going to be using a 60 mil TPO membrane, which is going to be white, which is really good for reflectability, helps with the energy costs, and it's extremely durable and comes with a 25-year warranty. So a little bit about us, Great Lakes Roofing. We've been around for about 40 years. We specialize in old roofs. You know, there's a lot of companies out there that put on a lot of new roofs, new construction, or do a lot of full replacement tear-offs. We're problem solvers. So if a full tear is not completely necessary, we don't think, you know, spending a large sum of money to replace the entire roof isn't always something that's needed. So we came up with this solution. We're very confident in our work. Like I said, we've been around for 40 years and we put a 25-year manufacturer warranty and a 20-year Great Lakes Roofing labor warranty. So we have, you can see on the screen there, we hold a lot of different awards, but the awards that I like to talk about the most is the Torch Award for the Better Business Bureau, which simply states that we are an honest, trustworthy company and we take care of our customers over and over again. I don't want to get into the details. I'll just talk a little bit more about who we are. We pride ourselves on safety. We're an extremely safe company. And one of the documents there is our workers' compensation mod rating, which is the 0.65, which is extremely low for a roofing company. Because as you know, roofing is pretty dangerous. And for us to have a mod rating below 1 is very rare. So it's the lowest number I've seen, which it just proves that we are extremely careful. We want to take care of our guys as well as everyone in the building that we're working on and the public around it. So very safe company, and the proof is right there. And I'll open it up to any questions if you guys have any about.
And I can talk a little bit
Yeah.
about the scope. So basically you got an EPDM roofing system up there. One of the sections, we're gonna skim the EPDM off of there, just because you do have a built-up roof underneath, just to make sure we're at 2 roofing systems. We are gonna install a 1/2-inch insulation and then new metal around the perimeter. Based on overheads and things I've looked back through, you do have decent water movement off of that roof. You're not ponding a lot of water or anything. So, and you do have saddles in between your drains, which layman's terms are just pieces of insulation in between the drains, which help move water to the drains. So we're confident that, you know, we can install this roof as a layover option, save you the money on trying to pitch it, and still give you a large warranty with the 25-year and 20-year on labor.
All right, any questions? None of us are roofers neither, so it's probably not. We don't have a lot of questions.
One of the,
How to do it.
could you, or I know that there were several requests for gabled roof.
Mhm.
And I can't get anyone to talk about a gabled roof. Could you tell me why that's a bad idea?
Sure. So, I mean, when you're, obviously these roofs are designed as a flat roof. When you're doing a gable roof, you're obviously, there's some problems that we don't really do these, number one, because we don't find the need, because we can service our customers' roofs with a flat roof and provide a great warranty and keep water out of the building, which is what you really want. I understand why people talk about pitched roofs, because you're concerned about water on the roof and you're trying to move water off the roof. But that's what these flat roofs are designed to do with the saddles in between the drains. They are moving water off your roof. So what you need is a good membrane and a good contractor that's installing it. A gable system, you're going to create a cavity above the roof when you're creating that new roofing system, literally above the flat roof that you have. And you're creating an airspace. So number one, you're going to have to worry about proper ventilation in that new airspace, proper insulation. And so if you don't have proper ventilation, you can obviously get moisture problems, which can lead to issues for you down the road. And then also you're adding a lot of weight on top of the roof with the gable system. So you're going to have a structural engineer come out and determine if the weight can even be supported by your current building. So there's other variables there that go into that. And we don't do that kind of work. So that's why we're providing our best solution for your situation. I've done flat roofs out in Richland Center. I've done Allied Machinery, did the Community First Bank flat roof section there too. So that's really your 2 main issues when you're talking about a gable system. Can your building support the weight? Are you going to have proper ventilation?
Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right.
You mentioned what, a 40-year warranty on it, you said?
25 years on the material, 20-year on our labor. We separate out our material and labor warranty, but we still give you 20 years on labor. That means that anything we do at the time of install, if you have a leak in the future, we come out there and determine if it is a membrane defect that would be warranted, or if it was an install defect that would be warranted. So if, there's an issue with our install that's leading to a leak in the future during this warranty period, we would cover that for you as well.
Is that prorated at all?
No. Those, if you have a warranty claim at year 19 and a half, it's going to cover the full amount of the warranty, not a portion.
How many years was the material?
25.
On material, 20 on labor. Scroll down a little bit. It's at the bottom of that document you're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, 25 then.
It's in your packet.
All right.
iPad or something.
Got it. There, okay. Stay.
All right. Well, let's hear from the other gentleman.
Okay, so I'll start answering your question on the gable thing. When I seen that, and again, we are a general contractor too, so we deal a lot of that. I would say nobody would even consider bidding that unless you had a architect draw that and engineering, because you are totally changing your load points. Is them walls safe to handle all that load? How do you get your valleys, your hips, all that to work? So when I seen that, I'm like, you would literally be just guessing at how that would work. And I think if you had a couple people bid that, they would be so different of where their bids would be. So kind of coming back to my bid, again, I'm not gonna bore you guys, a lot of what I agree with them guys. So when I came out, I did some core samples. I focused my core samples around where she had pointed out the leaks were. I determined that the fiberboard underneath is completely dry. I also did a thermal scan with a drone, which I basically did an aerial. It will tell me if any of that underlayment is wet, and it came back perfect. So I come back to why tear off something that is dry and it's working. I mean, I don't think I've ever sat through a committee that says, hey, we have too much money, we need to spend it. So we gotta come back to what is a solution that's best for the customer at that cost. So we have a commercial roof coating division. Again, it has to meet all the criteria, which one is you cannot have any moisture under there. I do on my quote say that I would come back in 2026 and do a normal thermal scan, because if there is some leaks, maybe through the winter, some water might penetrate. So we want to make sure that before the roof was done, that there is no moisture there. If there is, we just cut it open a little bit, patch it in. With the coating systems, again, you are putting a thin fiber over the top of the whole roof. So you are essentially putting another layer. The nice part with the coatings is it's classified as a maintenance. So you do have some sections that are 2 layers, but being is considered a maintenance, you can put that on there because it's not actually counting as a 3rd layer of a membrane. Coatings have been around for years and years. There's hundreds of thousands of coatings. And that's why I always say it's very important to find a system that works. There's good drainage. I said there is nothing up there that says, why would you tear this roof off? You need to figure out what is the solution to fix your problems, and it's a maintenance thing. That roof is old. Rubber does not last forever. You're going to a white rubber roof or a white coatings versus black. That will change your heating and cooling very substantial. So basically what we can do is we do a 20-year manufacturer warranty on the materials, and then it's backed by a 15-year labor workmanship warranty, which comes in to say with that follows by the roof care plan. So with the roof care plan, as we are coming out and we are inspecting that roof every single year, generally from May to October is when we're gonna come out and we're gonna inspect that roof. And I always say, there's nothing you buy today that shouldn't have some kind of a warranty. I mean, when you buy a car, they want you there every month to look at it. So I feel a roof is the same thing. Get some eyes on it, make sure. Sure, none of you guys are gonna go up on that roof every year and look at it. Are the drains done right? Stuff like that. Are they plugged? So that's where we say, we wanna put our eyes in. I wanna see you guys, I wanna talk to you guys. So that's where I say, that's where our workmanship comes in, is you sign a workmanship guarantee, and that's how we back it with our 15-year warranty. The manufacturer we use, they've been around for 45 years. It's a proven system. It'll last. The nice part is after your warranty is done, if the coatings would ever start to laminate a little bit after 25, 30 years, the process is you come in, you wash it, you coat it again. Quarter of the cost. And that's where I say it's very crucial of that maintenance. The longer you can maintenance that roof and get eyes, the longer it'll last. So, and a little bit about us. I'm from Spring Green. I'm local. We do a ton of work in Richland Center, this area. So, I'm not coming from anywhere else. So.
Okay, any questions?
It says on here, what is not included in the warranty: damage from neglect and lack of maintenance. So my first question would be, is that where you're saying you need to come every year, inspect that roof, or if not, you have a list? Because our neglect or our lack.
Is that in on that, the roof care program?
I get it. Page 5, I guess, page 4.
Yeah, so obviously it has, again, if this was after year 2, so we do a 2-year free warranty. After 2 years, we're gonna bill you per what it says. And what that basically says is after 2 years, if you guys fail to pay me, then your warranty's gone, And then this is what is not covered under that, again, if like it's a tree falls onto that roof and a branch stabs it, again, that is not due to a workmanship. That comes down to, you know, something that was caused by that. So this just really explains what is not caught under our workmanship warranty.
That's what I wanna know is like, what, you said lack of maintenance, I guess, so our maintenance person might have his thoughts on what maintenance needs to be done, and you have your thoughts what maintenance needs to be done. And he does something, but you say, well, that's, you need to do this instead of this.
Well, your maintenance guy shouldn't have to do anything. That's where I would come every year and I would do that. I'm gonna check all this, you know, around the penetrations, and if it's minor stuff in there, that would be covered under our workmanship. We're gonna take care of it. Your maintenance guy should never have to go on that roof.
And that's
Right.
at no cost? or-
That's at no cost, yes. Right.
Except the 175 each.
Yes, yes. That is what, after 2 years free, then you will get billed $175 a year after that. And that is me coming out and inspecting that roof and doing very minimal things. So,
And then, of course, whatever needs to be done at some point, we're gonna have to pay, you know what I mean?
correct.
If it isn't, it's so typically there's gonna be something that goes on, and in your inspection, there could be added costs there.
Correct. At my inspection, I'm gonna do a full photo package and supply somebody of saying like, hey, here's a major issue that's gonna come up in a couple of years. Something like that. We need to look at that. But that's where putting your eye on that every single year. Hoping you're gonna catch that stuff sooner.
Anything else, Gary? Anybody else got any questions?
More of a comment. This is another case where it didn't specify exactly, so we got two different solutions. Makes it awkward.
Well, it was really spec'd out. Both, biggest thing is we're both going with alternatives because really how it was spec'd out was a tear up, which, I mean, again, you would be throwing money away. You don't need to tear that roof off. So we're both really coming at it with alternative options, you know?
Well, where are we at? Looking for a motion to do something here.
So, we initially budgeted a couple years back or whatever for $10,000 for that roof.
We spent that money on repairs.
Correct. However, now it's $47,000. Mr. Finders, and I don't know, I didn't look at the other one, you know, 98,000? Yeah. So, that's,
Yeah, we make it
the
matter.
last couple of years, the prices went up quite a bit for a roof, and I hate to see what it would be in a couple of years.
Well, and I don't think originally when it was purchased, we knew that at some point in the next few years, we were gonna have to do something.
That is correct.
And I remember, I think the number was closer to 50,000 around trying to get it. And this is just a recollection of thought. And the reason why the gable thing is brought up is because gable roofs typically don't leak, right? So the layman out here that every flat roof you look at, and I work in, we have all flat roofs and we spend a lot of money on roofs. And you spend a lot of money to maintain roofs, and that's where that comes from.
No, I
And with
get it.
someone saying, hey, let's put a gable on, we'll never have to do anything with it again.
I
But
see it all the time.
there's way more, and that's for both of you to understand, that's where that comes from, when you got people that don't work in the roofing business. Well, if you put enough pitch on it, the water ain't gonna stay up there. But I remember that conversation.
That comes from my dad having several flat roofs on several houses, and none of them.
I will be agreeing. Flat roofs in Wisconsin don't work. I mean, but the problem is there's a lot of them, you know. But I don't know. I don't know that you could put a gable roof on that for 150,000. I mean,
We have as well start over.
I think we have
right.
that here. Randy, don't we got a flat roof
Oh,
out
yeah.
here by the bell tower or whatever?
So actually,
Right, but you got a flat roof, but then the gable or the roof's over that. You go up those stairs. on
Yeah,
the court
it's
roof.
gone. It's gone. They looked over.
all right, so where are we at?
I make a motion, we go with the lower bid, that's an awful lot.
Do I have a second?
I'll take it.
Steve with a second. Any discussion?
So by lower, we're saying finer construction.
Right, there you go. Nothing. All in favor, think about it, saying aye. Aye. Anybody against? All right, Finer, congratulations.
This
Great Lakes,
will
thank you.
have to go to finance, correct?
Yeah, probably is.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
She actually says if it's under
Thanks.
50,
We're okay. So we can
Okay.
approve it where it's at.
So
But
no,
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Call in. All right.
okay.
Next agenda item. We go on 26 Department, Highway Department Capital Improvement Plan. We already got that covered. Are you good for that, or we put it on next meeting?
Don't need to put it on next meeting. This point, we'll be trying to plan for 2027. That gives us a full year to
Okay.
do that.
All right. So number 11, Public Works Standing Committee meeting frequency and time. All right, so part of the reason I brought this up, if we're not gonna have to manage stuff on a monthly, we don't have to pay the bills, we don't have to do this, can we go to a quarterly meeting? I mean, is anybody opposed to a quarterly meeting? Now's the time to speak. Now, if we need to meet in between the quarterly meeting, I don't see any reason why we just can't have a meeting, you know what I mean? Josh, if either of you, if you need something, we need to have a meeting to get it done. We can't wait till, say, okay, in a quarter, we'll do this in 2 more months. We're not gonna do that, right?
Yeah, the biggest thing is like the bids for road work at the beginning of the season, and then, again, quarterly is fine because how I'm gonna present financials, you're gonna see a snapshot in time of what we spent, where we're currently at, and conditions of, I mean, where we're at with the road projects, so be fine to go quarterly.
I'm fine with that. I would just say, let's make sure we leave that same monthly slot open in case we did.
I have no problem with that. Gary, you have concern.
I guess, I don't know. I just like coming to meetings. Whatever. We need to have a meeting, we need to have a meeting. I don't have to say.
And that's why I look at it, but I think the problem I have is we have a hard time getting quorum, and then we get here and it's a 15-minute meeting. It doesn't make much sense to me. But if we need to have a meeting, we have it. So I would say that I agree with Steve, keep the slot there on the calendar, but we would meet quarterly, so January, then you're looking at what, April, so on. So
Somewhere in there.
and if we need to meet in between that, we meet. I think,
This means something's gonna happen.
well, we're gonna meet every month now because we said we're gonna do it quarterly. That's fine, but the meeting needs to have purpose and it needs to have some substance to it. I mean, just for you guys to get together we can figure out someone. We're working. I think that's allowed. All right, so the action, can I get a motion to change the meeting?
I so move.
To the same date and the same time of the month, but only quarter.
So your motion is to meet quarterly, starting in January 2026, January, April, July, and October is your official meeting dates, and then in between as needed at your normal time.
Perfect, Derek.
Got it? Okay, you're good. First by me.
Okay, so we got a first, we got a second from Steve, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, future agenda items?
Pumps,
Oh,
we're gonna put in a new thing. We need to be buying pumps so they can be put in at the same time.
So with that, there is one brand new dollar, it was replaced just about a year and a half ago. The other two, another one is like 5 years old, and there's one that's probably 30 years old, so it is on its last life. But they're not as expensive as he was saying, they're not $3,500. I think we got the last one for like 1,200. And
so can we work that into where we?
I can do it right into my budget, my normal buildings budget.
Replace
I got
the
money.
30-year-old one and have an extra one?
Yeah, I can have one of those on hand, but I can replace the two that need to be replaced.
Okay,
It's not that expensive, so
perfect,
I can do it with my normal budget.
perfect. All right, anything else?
No, the only thing we didn't discuss whether we wanted any of his add-on options on that bid.
The brine thing, I don't see any reason for that
No.
brine thing. The other thing, what was the other thing?
Dual pump, putting a secondary pump backup pump on for. I mean, it's done before. It doesn't matter.
Are
It
we
was
gonna
a
leave?
duplex pump for $3,600.
It's $3,600.
But if I replace mine, we shouldn't need that extra.
Well,
No, this is a duplex pump that makes it two pumps. If one fails, if that one fails, you have one for a backup, the way I understood it.
I amend that to add that in.
This is going to,
Doesn't have to until it goes over 50,000, so.
what do you guys think? I
You
don't.
gotta get Tricia to sign it, so that's what you're at right now.
Yeah,
Wait, slow down. What are you guys?
So there was a secondary pump on that quote from the chiller for $3,600, and that's what Steve's asking. We didn't add that on. Should we add that on?
Derek, who made the original motion?
That's a different one. You're not paying. This one's gotta go. This one's gotta go, so we need to change. This one's gotta go county board, because this is 175,000.
Right.
But adders wouldn't go to the county.
Well, if we're not gonna put it in with the other one, then let me talk to Kevin a little bit.
What I was gonna ask was, were you gonna leave, because that pump's not the only thing, all this electrical work, the modified pads, those are all things that, are we leaving that to Randy to take care of, or do we need to get involved?
So when we discussed that with the RFP, that I would take care of through our buildings budget, we would take care of the electrical with Miller Electric and the concrete pad.
So you'll
We would take care of
bid
that.
it out, or you'll
Yep.
make it happen,
Yep.
and we don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, and I already had discussion on what we need to get hooked into. We need somebody that does high power stuff, so you gotta put in 200 amp breakers and run all their stuff over to their boxes and shut offs and all that stuff, so. We've already discussed it, so.
It's the same thing, it's just another adder he can handle.
Okay. You're good with that? Everybody's good with that? So then what goes to the county board is a bid, and the adder is, and the adder is whatever. Otherwise, if you wanna get the adder right now, then we amend the motion and go into 175. I don't care either way. Take it to county board.
It's gonna go anyway, so.
Yeah, it's gotta go there anyway. All right,
Buddy, yes, that's.
correspondence? All right. Gary. All in favor? Aye. Nice job. Let's get things done. Yeah, sorry for that.